Good evening. Welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Kasuni Balachandra.
Good evening, I'm Clifford Richards. First of all, we take a look at the headlines.
Sri Lanka in second in the world place in controlling COVID-19. Traders educated on pricing coconuts based on the circumference. The former commander of the SDF states that the Easter Sunday attacks could have been thwarted if alerted at least the day before. Monkeys oppress the residents of Adalachena.
Moving on to the stories in detail. Sri Lanka has secured the second place from amongst 108 countries in a survey conducted by the Yikai Research Institute in China on the prevention and control of COVID-19. The full report of the survey is expected in October. Issuing an interim report, the Research Institute states that 10 Asian nations have topped the list, which include China, Sri Lanka, South Korea, and also Myanmar, Australia, Thailand, New Zealand, Vietnam, and Cambodia. The steps taken by Sri Lanka to identify the disease, control, and prevent its spread has been evaluated in the report. Sri Lanka has obtained an overall score of 59.2 points in the survey. The contribution of the country in controlling the epidemic scores 70.8 points, whilst pertaining to actions taken against the pandemic, the country secures third place. The point scored for recovering the economy stands at 49.1, whilst position is 12th place. 20 points have been awarded for contributions in the foreign relations category, placing the country at position 33. Thereby, the Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka, issuing a release, announced that the Yikai Research Institute has positioned Sri Lanka in the second place. The People's Republic of China secures the top spot, while Ghana is in the third place. The fourth and fifth places have been obtained by South Korea and Myanmar, while the sixth, seventh, and eighth places have been obtained by Australia, Thailand, and New Zealand, respectively. Vietnam is in the ninth place, whilst Cambodia is 10th. In this classification, Sri Lanka comes second with an overall score of 59.2 points. China, ranking first, has scored 68.1 points. Ghana securing third place, obtaining 58.8 points. And the scores of the other countries are Myanmar 56.3, Australia 55.6, Thailand 55.4, New Zealand 55.1, Vietnam 54, and Cambodia 53.7 points.
Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavindra Siva states that it has been confirmed that the staff of the oil tanker that docked at the Colombo port recently are COVID-19 positive persons. A group of Sri Lankans who came in close contact with them have been sent to quarantine. The group of locals had boarded the ship for an inspection when it docked at the Colombo port recently, and thereafter the tanker reportedly sailed to the Trincomalee harbour, at which PCR tests were conducted. The results confirmed that 17 of the ship's crew have contracted COVID-19. The Health Ministry states that the entire staff of the vessel are Indian nationals. The oil tanker with its staff is reportedly scheduled to depart from the country.
The Consumer Affairs Authority took steps to educate traders on the pricing of coconuts based on the current and also the circumference of the nut today. A Gazette notification was issued yesterday with the maximum price of a coconut determined at 70 rupees. As per the Gazette notification, the maximum retail price of a coconut with a circumference of over 13 inches has been determined as 70 rupees. The maximum retail price of a coconut with a circumference between 12 to 13 inches will be 65 rupees. A coconut with a circumference less than 12 inches can be sold for 60 rupees. Thereby, officers of the Consumer Affairs Authority visited Dematagoda Public Market for an inspection with equipment to measure coconuts. Traders found not selling coconuts under the control price were educated on the new rules. Coconut traders at the Narayanpeta Economic Centre were also educated.
මල්ලි මේකට දාන්නකො බෝඩ් එක 60යි කියලා. ඒක 12ට අඩු 60යි. ඒක හටට එන්න ඕනේ.
Meanwhile, members of the National Organization for the Protection of Consumer Rights visited the Narayanpeta Weekly Fair to inquire into coconut prices.
හෙට උදේ අපි එනවා බලන්න. හරි? ඒ විදිහ වෙනස් කරලා තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඊට පස්සේ ආයි වෙනස් කරලා නැහැ අමතක වුණා නැත්නම් බැරි වුණා බෑ නෑ ඒව කරන්න.
මංගල් 14යි. 14යි. ඒ කීයද? 75ක්. ඒවත් රිපෝටේ 60ට පාඩ. ඕවා නම් ඉතින් කීයද හරි අන්තිමට දීලා 50ට හරි.
පාඩු වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
දැන් මේ ටිකට කීයක් ගියා?
මේ ටිකට ගියා 300.
75යි නේ.
A media briefing to raise awareness on the decision taken by the Consumer Affairs Authority to determine the price of coconuts based on the circumference was held today.
ඔක්කොම දෙන්නේ රුපියල් 75ට. ලේසියට අර
Arrests have been made in the Horagampitiya area in Telikada, Gaul, for possessing narcotics, including narcotic pills and also Kerala cannabis. 9 individuals were taken into custody. The narcotic substances were seized by the police during a party held at the residence in the area by the arrestees. The police also seized cash, mobile phones and several equipment in their possession. The Grand Pass Crimes Prevention Division today arrested an individual in the Bekariwatta area in possession of 84 grams of heroin. The raid was carried out upon a tip-off received by the Western Province Intelligence Division. The Meegoda police arrested 2 individuals in possession of 5 grams of heroin, 3 grams of narcotic substance ice today. The Putthala Police Special Task Force personnel arrested an individual in possession of heroin in a raid carried out in the 37th milepost area in Uwakuda Oya in Vallavai yesterday. The police state that the arrestee had been identified as one of the main smugglers of drugs in the area. 480 milligrams of heroin were found in his possession, and also a cartridge gun and a stockpile of weapons were discovered by the police special task force hidden in a house in Bandiripur area in Vennapur. The police STF personnel also recovered 5 swords produced overseas and also locally produced sword, 5 Rambo type knives, 6,000 lead pellets, and also 1 suspect was taken into custody.
Minister Prasanna Ranatunga says that steps will be taken to achieve a revenue target of $10 billion from the tourism industry by 2025. The minister made this comment joining in a ceremony to mark International Tourism Day. The United Nations has declared the 27th of September as the International Tourism Day. In 1980, for the first time, the International Tourism Day was marked under the theme, the tourism industry and rural development. The tourism industry is represented by 10% of the global employment. The International Tourism Day is observed to raise awareness of the scope of the tourism industry amongst the international community. This year's International Tourism Day ceremony was held under the patronage of Minister Prasanna Ranatunga in Kandy, alongside an exhibition featuring items created by small and medium-scale industrialists of the Kandy, Mathale and Nuwara area districts. The event was also attended by State Minister Dilum Amunugama, Central Provincial Governor Attorney at Law Lalit U. Gamage, Sabaragama Provincial Governor Tikiriko Bakadua and several parliamentarians.
It's a quite free country. කියන මතය ලෝකේ පුරා තියෙන. කොයිත් වසංගතයේ පාලනයත් එක්ක ගුවන් තොටුපළවල් විවෘත කරපුවාම ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, issuing a felicitation message to mark International Tourism Day, stated that when observing the current global setup, it is clear that the tourism industry has a direct impact on the global economy. He observed that in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the tourism industry suffered a setback not only in Sri Lanka but globally as well. The Premier further states that taking note of the situation, as a government, plans have been drawn to promote the tourism industry to enhance its economic contribution.
Sri Lanka Customs, upon the permission of the Attorney General yesterday, took steps to send back 21 of the 263 containers which illegally arrived from England in December 2017 containing waste. This is the first time that containers with waste in them have been sent back from the South Asian region. Sri Lanka Customs states that the court order pertaining to the return of the 242 waste containers has been received. 112 containers are being held at the Colombo port, whilst the other 113 containers have been transported to the Katunayake Investment Promotion Zone. These containers, which arrived in the country in violation of customs laws, contained urban waste disposed from households. Although authorization had to be sought before dispatching the containers from England, such a clearance had not been obtained according to the Basel Agreement signed between Sri Lanka and England. Prior to authorization needs to be obtained before such a shipment is dispatched. The Sri Lanka Customs states that legal action will be taken against the local companies for importing waste, while steps will be taken to negotiate and obtain fine from the mother company based in England. Minister Namal Rajapaksa has taken steps to allocate a fully fledged sports complex in the Galle area for volleyball. This decision has been taken upon a request made by President of the Volleyball Association, Deputy Speaker Ranjith Simalapitiya. Volleyball was introduced to Sri Lanka in 1916. The Sri Lanka Volleyball Association was established in 1951, and thereafter the men's and women's volleyball teams were formed. Sri Lanka played its first international volleyball match way back in 1956. Volleyball was declared as Sri Lanka's national sport in 1991. Although the sports has a history of over a century in the country, a dedicated sports complex has not been available for the game. President of the Volleyball Association, Ranjith Simalapitiya, raised the concern with the Sports Minister Namal Rajapaksa. Thereby, steps were taken to set aside a fully fledged sports complex in the Galle area for volleyball. The sports complex, which will be named Volleyball House, consists of an indoor stadium, a swimming pool and also a gymnasium.
The debut screening of the film Miss Janice, which is the maiden film production of veteran teledrama producer T.G. Susiran De Silva, took place at the Liberty Cinema Hall on Friday. The film runs on the theme Piyasena Hasaka Abhimana, the nobility of a father's love. Significantly, this is the final featuring of veteran actor the late Jalat Manuratna in a film. In this film, he plays the female character of Miss Janice. The other actors include Giriraj Kaushalya, Jalal Rohana, Dulika Marapana and Roshan Ranavana. Veteran teledrama director Susiran De Silva is highly acclaimed amongst teledrama viewers for classic teledramas such as Ekata Gatamo and Isuru Yoga. Testifying before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the Easter Sunday attacks, former commander of the Police Special Task Force, retired senior DIG M.R. Latif, stated that he was not altered in a proper manner by the then IGP and the then Director of the State Intelligence Service on the prior foreign intelligence received pertaining to the Easter Sunday attacks, even though the police task force has a significant capacity to respond to terrorism. The former commander of the STF, testifying before the Commission yesterday, stated that if the Director of the State Intelligence Service had altered him pertaining to the confirmed warning received on the day before the attacks, the Police Special Task Force would have been clearly capable of having the Colombo city locked down to arrest the terrorists and thwart the attacks. During the testimony, the State Additional Solicitor General queried of the witness as to whether he was aware of the first prior warning received from a foreign intelligence source on the 4th of April last year. In response, the retired senior DIG stated that the relevant details which were forwarded to him by then IGP Pujit Jayasundara were received at the police STF headquarters on the 9th of April at 6:45 p.m. last year. He further stated that, however, as of then, upon the instructions of the Minister of Defence, he was overseas. He added that upon his return to the country on the 10th of April, before reporting for duty, he contacted the IGP Pujit Jayasundara and inquired into whether there is anything of concern. The witness added that then IGP Pujit Jayasundara responded with the words that translate as, quote, "There is nothing special," unquote. Retired Senior DIG M.R. Latif further stated that when he reported for duty the following day, his attention was focused on the said intelligence information, and therefore he alerted the STF personnel on the Colombo Division and the STF personnel of the Elite Security Division and the Presidential and Prime Ministerial Security Divisions. At this point, the State Additional Solicitor General queried of the witness as to whether the prior warning intelligence information received on the 4th of April was discussed when he met with the IGP or the Defence Secretary during the period from the 10th to the 20th of April last year. The retired senior DIG, upon browsing the notebook he used at the time, stated that on the 11th of April last year, at the discussion on combating narcotics and organised crimes, he met with Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando and with then IGP Pujit Jayasundara on the same evening for a further discussion. The witness further stated that, however, at both encounters, not a word was discussed by the IGP or the Defence Secretary pertaining to the intelligence information received on the 4th of April. At this point, retired Senior DIG M.R. Latif pointed out to the Presidential Commission that although in the evidence recording before the Parliamentary Select Committees, certain individuals had stated that the prior warning was discussed with him on the 18th of April, he was attending an overseas global forum on narcotics prevention from the 15th to the 18th of April, and therefore no such alert was received by him during the said time period. The State Additional Solicitor General, hearing evidence on the Commission, at this point queried of the witness as to whether then Director of the State Intelligence Service Nilantha Jayawardena attempted to contact him whilst he was overseas. The witness responded with the word that translates as, quote, "No. Nilantha spoke to me on the 19th of April as an explosion had been reported on the 16th of April at Kathankudi. He inquired of my opinion. I responded saying, I just arrived in the country. I will deploy officers to investigate the explosion and submit a post-investigation report." Unquote. The witness, retired Senior DIG M.R. Latif, further stated that afterwards, on the evening of the 20th of April, he spoke to Nilantha Jayawardena, stating that the explosion has been analysed and it is evident that it had been an experiment that can even destroy a massive number of human lives. The witness further stated that since a bicycle had been used in the experiment, it should be taken note of since a bicycle can easily be ridden amongst a crowd. However, testifying further before the Presidential Commission, former commander of the Police Special Task Force, retired Senior DIG M.R. Latif, stated that he was not properly educated on the intelligence received from a foreign source pertaining to the attacks and the details in possession of the State Intelligence Service and the responsible officers at the time. The retired Senior DIG's further testimony translates as, quote, "The STF started receiving information after the 21st of April. Why after the 21st? The STF is curious. Why was the said information not sent beforehand? If the IGP had confidence in the Special Task Force, why was information not shared with me? I got to know of Zaharan and extremist groups after the bomb attacks when we were summoned to the National Security Council. Until then, I was not aware. What I received was only the first alert received from a foreign intelligence source, but that correspondence had limited information. However, much more information has been exchanged between the State Intelligence Service, the National Intelligence Head and the IGP. I was not in receipt of documents pertaining to the name of the terrorist outfit, their connections and the areas where they were gathered." Unquote. The witness further recorded evidence which translate as, quote, "At first, we were summoned to the Security Council. When the Ministry of Law and Order came under the purview of Sagala Ratnayaka and Ranjit Madhuma Bandara, I requested of the Ministry Secretaries to accommodate us at the Security Council. However, we were not invited. As of then, the STF was rendering a special contribution in raiding drug rackets. However, we were not even invited to an intelligence coordination meeting. If the said intelligence information was sent to me on the 9th of April, then the STF could have been deployed on a special operation to avert the Easter Sunday attacks, as there were 13 days before the attacks were actually unleashed." Unquote.
And in more local stories, today is the final day of the Colombo International Book Fair. We have a short report on that.
Single organizer.
10 consecutive days.
22 editions.
400 stalls.
Thousands of workforce.
Hundreds of thousands of visitors.
Millions of books.
Today is the 10th and the final day of the Colombo International Book Fair organized by the Sri Lanka Book Publishers Association for the 22nd time this year. A large number of people have attended today as well.
For 10 consecutive days, from the 18th of this month to 27th, that means today, the book fair, the Colombo International Book Fair, took place successfully from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. The organizers have implemented strict safety measures due to the ongoing coronavirus outbreak, wearing face masks properly, sanitizing the hands and maintaining 1 meter social distancing as much as possible.
We've witnessed millions of people walking into the BMICH premises and millions of people obviously buying books, and despite the health regulations, despite the weather condition, despite every little small hassle they have gone through, they've made it to the Colombo International Book Fair. This is the most awaited moment for everybody, for all those book lovers out there. They always wait for the literacy month, which is September, just to attend the Colombo International Book Fair. So the Sri Lanka Book Publishers Association has certainly rendered a yeoman service this year as well, and they expect to do it the following year too.
Sri Lanka Book Publishers Association, the key organizer of this event. Today we have Mr. Vijitayappa, former president of the Sri Lanka Book Publishers Association.
We had lots of problems in organizing this event this year, unlike last year. But we are very, very happy that it has gone through, and today is the last day. Now, reckoning, we have had about 1 million visitors this year. Usually it's about 2 million, but this year it's less. But even then, we are happy that despite COVID and all these things, that people have had the faith that we will take the necessary precautions to look after them. And we are grateful to the health authorities, to the government, the BMICH and others who cooperated with us fully. And we were able to see that everyone wears face masks. But it's been a good sale. It's not as much as we had last year in terms of sales, but that's not the point. This is an occasion when people get together, they talk to each other, they meet each other, they discuss the literary events, they discuss the various books, what are the books to be bought. So all this has happened, and we are very, very grateful that we could go ahead with this despite getting the permission to have it only 2 weeks ago. So that's the great thing. We did not have any international publishers this year, but they allowed their representatives in Sri Lanka to have stalls on their behalf. So they are also very, very happy, saying this must be the first country in the world which has had such an event despite the COVID, and that everything has gone so well. Because in all the other countries in Europe, in Asia and other places, there is so much restrictions. But that's because they have not looked after the health of the people and given the necessary instructions and seen that they are obeyed. But Sri Lanka has been very, very different. We've been very fortunate in having a government which was very concerned about the rules and regulations, and that we are all able to move around like this freely.
And heading into the sports news, the National and International Surfing Championship ended at the Arugambe Beach this evening. The tournament was organized by the Sports Ministry and also the Tourism Ministry and a private organization. In a national championship men's division, 67 surfers competed, whilst 32 of them competed at the international championship. In the women's division, 14 competitors featured in the international championship, which was won by South African surfer Nikita Robe, while the second place was won by an Estonian and the third place won by Anne Sunarajaman of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka secured victory in the men's division with Asanka Sanjeeva emerging first and Israeli national emerging second, while the third place went to Australia. The national championship of the men's division was won by Lakshita Madhushan, whilst Sanka Sanjeeva secured the second place and Lasit Prabhat coming third. And it's time to end the news. Do enjoy the rest of the programs. Take care and good night.
Good night.